Who could have predicted back in 2017 that after winning the UFC interim lightweight title in the 10th fight of his 12-fight winning streak, not only would Tony Ferguson go on to have a losing streak that's equally as legendary, but the next time he challenged for an interim belt would be against the guy that made Running Man TikToks. And not only that, but everybody would be expecting him to lose because seeing him get demolished has become as expected as seeing Conor McGregor zoot it out of his mind, or John Jones in yet another vehicle-related arrest. It's so par for the course that even the media members have become numb to the idea and just snicker about his latest attempt at a comeback that's almost guaranteed to be a disaster.
Who's the favorite in the co-main?
Probably Salt Papi.
Probably Salt Papi.
What the hell? What the hell?
What happens if Tony Ferguson gets knocked out by Salt Papi?
Nothing. I mean, he just does another fight.
Papi's striking not that bad, by the way. It's not that bad.
I'm just saying. What was Salt Papi doing in like 2020 when Tony Ferguson was at his peak?
Oh my God. I think he was doing those videos where he was going like this. He was doing the Running Man videos.
Yeah, the running one.
Now he's fighting Tony freaking Ferguson.
He's fighting Tony Ferguson. I wonder how many rounds. Doesn't say. That's something. Madness.
As ridiculous as the moniker of Salt Papi is, he's actually one of the most skilled influencer boxers and was at one point hyped to be the best of the bunch because of the fact that he looked like he had been training for years from his very first match. He claims that his immediate grasp of boxing fundamentals was just a result of practicing with his friends for fun and learning from YouTube tutorials, but the obvious skill gap between him and his first couple of opponents lets me know that he most likely wasn't a stranger to the boxing gym. And while he did rack up a couple of losses since his debut, including to an MMA fighter in Anthony Taylor, and the hype behind him has largely died down, make no mistake, this match against Tony Ferguson is designed to boost his profile. This isn't the 2018 El Kakui that had the UFC lightweight division in a stranglehold. This is a man that suffered 8 consecutive defeats, many of them in brutal fashion, and went through a full-blown psychotic break with reality that involved police intervention, and was eventually let go from the company as an act of charity in hopes that he stops fighting for his own good. We all know how much Dana White hates it when his fighters compete in influencer boxing events because of how poorly it reflects back on the sport of MMA when they lose, but unlike most of the people on the roster with a recognizable name, the UFC made absolutely no attempt to re-sign Ferguson or stall his contract in order to stop him because it's beyond obvious that he's finished. And I have to give a lot of props to Fred Talks Fighting because he had enough journalistic integrity to ask the co-CEO of Misfits Boxing, Mams Taylor, about the hypocrisy of him previously criticizing Jake Paul for fighting over-the-hill opponents and then bringing in Tony Ferguson in order to showcase his own fighter. And you could tell that Mams didn't expect to be asked a real question like this and was pretty much caught dead to rights, so he had to quickly scramble his brain in order to figure out how to explain himself without coming off like a complete phony.
You criticized Jake Paul numerous times in the past for fighting people who are above 40 years old. Do you not find it a little bit hypocritical now you've got your star Salt Papi fighting a 40-year-old?
You're calling me a hypocrite, Fredericks.
Indeed.
Are you actually?
Well, it is a little bit like, if you criticize someone for doing something and then you match your fighter up with the same thing, can you see where the fans are coming from?
Is that what fans are saying, that it's the same thing?
I've seen a few things online on Twitter.
Okay, so look, is it hypocritical? Very good question. A few different factors, okay? First of all, I didn't want to talk about Jake Paul, but here we are. You asking me the question, I'm going to answer it. Secondly, Jake said he wants to be a world champion. I think Jake got my respect when he beat Tyron Woodley the first time, okay? And if with Salt and Tony, it's a very 50-50 fight. There's no weight bullying. There's no advantages for anyone. It's a fair fight.
Saying that there are no advantages for anyone in this fight is obviously nonsense since Salt Papi is 10 years younger and not even close to being as battle-worn as Tony Ferguson, who could unironically apply for disability if he had the right lawyer. And the fight is a stylistic nightmare for Tony to begin with because even during his prime years, he didn't exactly have Mayweather-like defense and won his fights through sheer offensive pressure and overwhelming his opponents with activity. He almost got put out cold by Lando Venata all the way back in 20 2016 due to being reckless, and the loss to Justin Gaethje in 2020 that started off his losing streak was the result of Tony running into a guy that refused to fold under pressure. So he had no recourse but to get into a back and forth firefight, which he ended up losing. And now that he's 5 years older and no longer possesses the legendary durability that he had in his prime, being relatively easy to hurt or even put to sleep, and doesn't have the boxing skills to fall back on, and isn't allowed to use any of his other weapons, he's pretty much a lamb being led to slaughter. And it's beyond sad that his friends, family, or even the athletic commissions don't step in to prevent him from suffering any more damage. Because Tony has proven time and time again that he's incapable of stopping himself and will keep going until he's too broken to make the walk inside the ring or the octagon. The problem lies in him misunderstanding his own problem. He seems to believe that the reason why he's no longer successful is because he lost some of his edge or killer instinct. So he constantly searches for different methods to reclaim his toughness, like hiring David Gogggins to be his trainer and cornerman against Paddy Pimblett, which obviously turned out to be a disaster. And I'm not one of those people that hates on David Gogggins. I actually believe that he's a pretty amazing guy. I've read his book and I think that his methods and philosophies could reinvent a lot of people in many different walks of life. But the one thing they can't do is turn back the hands of time, which is what's needed to get Tony Ferguson in the winning column again. Because being tough enough has never been his issue. His problem is being so damaged that his body shuts down at the first sign of trauma. And there's no amount of getting after it that will fix your reflexes or how you respond to getting hit, and the only person that doesn't seem to be able to grasp that is Tony Ferguson himself. Everyone else is either amused, legitimately concerned for his safety, or some combination of both.
Gogggins put him through a
but
cardio sessions. Like,
I think Tony Ferguson after Gaethje's a different human being.
Yeah, he's been compromised.
And I like David Gogggins, but I don't think he should have been in the corner. I mean, you got him in the corner yelling from the stand. I'm not Gogggins. I like all this, but he's in the corner going, "Get up, Tony!" It's like it's one of those things where it's like, no.
Agreed. Agreed. Look, when it comes to willpower and when it comes to like discipline, there's no one like Gogggins. But that doesn't matter if you mount him and strangle him to death.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. You all that I never quit. You're gonna quit.
Being driven is usually a good quality to have. People who set their goals high and don't take no for an answer tend to get very far in life, because even if they don't reach their ultimate dream, they get a lot further than the average person just by virtue of pursuing it. Which is where the saying, aim for the sky, land in the clouds, comes from. But Tony has managed to pervert that quality to the point of being a danger to himself by becoming completely void of all logic and self-awareness. He's addicted to finding flaws where there are none and needlessly reinventing himself in order to avoid the obvious truth of being over the hill. He seems to feel like every loss is just another lesson that he can use to get back to winning, while avoiding the obvious lesson of no longer being able to compete. David Gogggins doesn't have anything to do with it. He's just the latest vessel for Tony's delusional insanity, who takes his words and twists them in a way that justifies his mangled view of reality. And if Gogggins ever challenges that view, he'll just find a new guru or self-help system in order to prolong his fantasy.
And the journey starts with you finding, why the hell am I here on this planet Earth? Why am I here? And if you don't know that, you will live the rest of your life searching, always asking the question, why?
And for the longest time, I thought my why was my why, and it really wasn't. I was doing things for the wrong reason. Not the bad reasons or good reasons. It was just not the reasons which I needed to stay focused. But in the process of doing all this, I've grown immensely. You're talking about learning how to bounce back from losses and wins. Like, I could tell you already, like, growing up, I only have a handful of losses in different sports, man. It just never happened. And then God was like, look, dude, you're going to take this period of your life and you're going to start to figure out exactly what you want to do. Because when you lose so much, people just want to disregard you, throw you to the side like you're an old or young or whatever the hell it is. And I sat there for the longest time watching all of these clips of my fans making these, and they're like kind of like watching the decline of all this, and I sat there and I got pissed.
Tony is the direct antithesis to Daniel Cormier, who seems to have completely come to terms with the setbacks and failures that he suffered throughout his career and came out on the other side a much happier and well-adjusted human being who's simply enjoying his life and not dwelling on what could have or should have been in the past. While Tony seems to be stuck in a continuous loop of trying to prove something to himself while everyone has moved on, with most of the fighters of his era either retired or on the verge of doing so. And even in the best case scenario of Tony Tony somehow pulling off a victory against Salt Papi, which I'm sure he would take as some kind of a cosmic sign of him being back to his physical prime, he would still be left without much of a purpose outside of being cannon fodder for the next influencer. And at least Salt Papi seems like a nice enough guy. I don't think I could stomach watching somebody like Dylan Dennis putting Tony's lights out. It's sad, it's difficult to watch, and hopefully somebody finally steps in so that Tony can face the music, readjust his why in a healthy way, and finally move on to the next stage of his life. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like the video if you liked it, and if you want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell next to it. And if you want to support this channel further, become a member by hitting join if you're on Android or desktop, or the link in the description if you're on iOS.
But if I could go back and fight another time, it would be Gaethje. And I would actually give it fight that one. Like, and I wouldn't go toe to toe. I would fight my fight the way I was supposed to and change future and see how it would go from that point.